Rudy Giuliani's lawyers want out, and there's a ton of redactions. But before we get into that, a little backstory if you haven't kept up. Defendant Rudolph W. Giuliani does not live in Florida, but he is pretending to in a brazen attempt to shield his luxury Palm Beach condo from his creditors. Unfortunately, this is only the latest of Mr. Giuliani's attempts to evade and obstruct accountability for his actions. For 2 years, plaintiffs endured a highly publicized litigation against Rudolph W. Giuliani for orchestrating a years-long defamatory campaign against them, in which Mr. Giuliani had repeatedly accused plaintiffs of committing election fraud during the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Finally, on December 15, 2023, a jury of his peers returned a $148 million verdict against Mr. Giuliani for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and civil conspiracy in connection with that conduct. Mr. Giuliani quickly filed for bankruptcy protection in a bad faith effort to frustrate plaintiff's judgment enforcement efforts. Eventually, the bankruptcy court saw through the scheme and dismissed the bankruptcy case for cause. Mr. Giuliani has now switched to tactics again, purporting to make his Palm Beach condominium, the Palm Beach condo, his principal residence in an effort to qualify the condo for homestead protection under Florida law. But that evasive maneuver is no more valid than the last few. Mr. Giuliani's own public internet broadcasts show he has not actually resided in the Palm Beach condo since purporting to establish permanent actual residence there, and he has certainly not maintained it as a homestead. So with that being said, there's a lot more I could go into, including the fact that, if I'm remembering right, at one point he claimed he couldn't even find the paperwork to hand over his condo, and then at one point he wasn't turning over a car he was supposed to turn over, but then he drove that same vehicle to vote. So he's been very flagrant, very he's very much been going everything he can to stop paying the money, and his lawyers seem done. Kenneth A. Caruso hereby declares, pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1746, I am a member of the bar of this court and the sole member of Kenneth Caruso Law, LLC. I am the counsel for defendant Rudolph W. Giuliani, defendant in both 2-4 CV, whatever they're, the homestead action and the turnover proceedings. I submit this declaration pursuant to SDNY Local Rule 1.4 and Rule 1.16 of New York Rules of Professional Conduct in support of a motion to withdraw as counsel for defendant. I make this motion on behalf of my counsel, David Lebowski of Lebowski Law, PA. The grounds for this motion arise under Professional Rule 1.16 C4, 6, and 7, which provide a lawyer may withdraw from representing a client when, these are what they're listing, the client insists upon taking action with which the lawyer has a fundamental disagreement. The client insists upon representing a claim or defense that is not warranted under existing law and cannot be supported by good faith argument for an extension, modification, or reversal of existing law. Also, client fails to cooperate in the representation or otherwise renders the representation unreasonably difficult for the lawyer to carry out employment effectively. And then we have these massive redactions, which there is more that's not redacted, but the redactions are worth mentioning because people have questioned, what could these possibly be? Because, I'm trying to remember the exact arguments I was reading, under the rules of what they're allowed to say in this motion, is they aren't allowed to go and broadcast anything that will require violating attorney-client privilege. So if that is the case, what is blacked here? What is blacked out? Now, this could end up becoming public later, but very interesting. What are they saying here? Because a lot of people are expecting the worst, as you might imagine, but we'll continue. With respect to the posture of the homestead action, the court has before it a fully submitted motion and cross motion for summary judgment. A case management plan and scheduling order is in place. A trial is scheduled for January 16, 2025. By the way, just so it is aware, Rudy is still screwed, even though Trump won. In fact, it gets even better when you consider the fact that how screwed he is. Rudy is owed $2 million from Donald Trump, and the courts might force Trump to pay Rudy to then pay the women he owes money. So I don't think he's really going to be in the good graces of Donald Trump. With respect to the posture of the turnover proceedings, the court issued an opinion and order ECF 62, the turnover order, requiring defendant to turn over specific property to plaintiffs by Friday, November 15th, 2024. Now, this is being recorded, and this was filed 11/13, so 2 days from now. Is this, whatever Rudy's planning in 2 days, is this why they're out? The Giuliani entities are required to respond to plaintiffs' information subpoenas today, and Standard USA LLC is required to respond by Friday, November 15th. Defendant's deadline to file a motion to modify the turnover order to require plaintiff to receive defendant's New York co-op as a homestead is due by Monday, November 18th, 2024. Counsel are not asserting or a retaining or charging lien. Pursuant to Local Rule 1.4, we have served a copy of this motion on the defendant via email. Given the sensitive nature of this filing, we respectfully request the court excuse us at this time from the requirement we serve a copy of this motion on the plaintiff and file proof of service on the defendant on the docket. For the foregoing reasons, we respectfully request the court grant this motion, withdraw, and enter an order relieving Kenneth Crossrow Law LLC and Lebrowski Law PA as counsel for defendant. And then it's just their signature. And here is the second one, which is essentially just the other lawyers saying, yeah, all of that, I agree, and ties themselves to it. So, as you might imagine, I saw lawyers leaving, and my first thought was very much invoked to me Sarah Boone. She's stuck in my brain still. So I had to look. By the way, if you're waiting for Sarah Boone information, the pre-sentencing report or whatever that's supposed to be, that is on the docket, but it's confidential, so we don't get to see it. So that's up. So Rudy Giuliani is with 2 days left. 2 days before he's supposed to turn over a lot. His lawyers are submitting this to the court, and they want out. That is interesting. Interesting is probably the only word I can use here. They have to have had a major disagreement with whatever his play or plan is. I don't know what that could be. What is causing them to leave? What is causing them to redact? It is very, very interesting that his lawyers, both, two of them, two different law firms, went out. Now, as I said, Rudy did appear in the vehicle that he's supposed to be turning over to vote. So I guess it is possible that Rudy has tried to concoct some plan so he doesn't have to try to turn that over. Maybe he's now claiming it was stolen or lost or something, and his lawyer's like, I can't do that, and led to this, separation. Theoretically, maybe something like that happened. I wish I could give you more. I wish this part wasn't redacted, but there is a chance that maybe this doesn't stay redacted. Maybe. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens on the 15th. It sounds like it could be rather interesting. His lawyers, I'm guessing, think it's going to be interesting.